time for the blend.
Come on.
Welcome to the blend.
Welcome to the Blend Talk. Ladies, adjusting your mind, body, spirit. An effort to make you whole. Blend together to heal your soul. Together. To the Blend Talk.
Welcome. I am Dr. Jewel Diamond Taylor, the spiritual life coach and co-host for the Blend Talk Show. This is season 2. My co-hosts, along with our guests, will share some courageous conversations and offer tools that will help you to successfully not only just survive, but thrive through this interesting COVID pandemic. This has been a disruptive season for all of us. I call it the Corona Coaster because we've had so many different emotions and changes and policies and uncertainty to deal with. And I know so many of you have experienced the death of loved ones, loss, grief, and disruption of your lives. So join us to learn how you can strengthen your physical, your mental, and your spiritual health. We're going to blend the amazing ingredients of hope, healing, education, empowerment, transformation, and sisterhood that's going to support you during these interesting and changing times. We know you. We are you. You don't have to do this journey of healing and learning and living your best life alone. Remember to take notes and hit that share button. Come on in the room to meet my co-hosts who are experts in their field. It's going to help all of us to heal, to grow stronger and wiser in our mind, our body, and our spirit. Let's rise up together.
Hi, I'm Dr. Lisa Lewis. You can call me Dr. Lisa. I'm a naturopathic doctor and an acupuncturist, and I help women with chronic disease achieve vitality by creating a healthy gut, healthy hormones, and healthy eating habits.
Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Karen McGibbon. People call me Dr. K. You may hear my accent. It's Jamaican. I am a psychotherapist, life coach. I specialize in happiness. I'm also a clinical counseling professor and an author. And I'm pleased to say that I'm happily married to Frank and the wonderfully blessed mother of 2 adult children. I really like working with people to try to understand their minds, their wills, their emotions, and just to create a better version of themselves.
I just love how we are vibing together. Something is happening in the atmosphere. I just feel it. This is the right time for the Blend Talk to be on the scene. I feel like people are going to be healed and transformed and informed by our conversations and our wonderful guests. I can't wait to see all the guests that are lined up. What's going to be amazing? Because I know the Blend Talk brand is all about offering solutions, wisdom, guidance, hope, real talk, and hope for strengthening our mind, our body, and our spirit. It has been so interesting for us as a people because we're used to hanging out. We're used to being around people. We're used to having those hugs and traveling and family gatherings, the cookouts, and going to church. There is so much that we're going to unpack. There's so much to cover to empower and encourage and educate our viewers. My beautiful co-hosts, I feel so much of your positive energy. I feel your anticipation and your willingness to share from your wheelhouse of experience and expertise. So much value you're bringing to the table.
I'm so excited by this because we need so much help right now. Like this whole experience, I don't think there's anyone that hasn't been touched by what's been happening over the last year or so. And they really need support. We really need support. And so I'm excited to be able to work with you and help people move through their healing. This is going to be exciting.
And that's what I'm excited about, the mind, body, spirit. For so long, I really have felt strongly that we're not addressing all the areas. And I try to address as many of them as I can with my clients, even though primarily they're talking about their emotions. But I do give hints, like maybe that sleep issue that Dr. Lisa can talk about could be connected, or maybe your anger is really anger at God, and Jewel can talk about that. And I find people are more open. What's exciting now is, even though the pandemic is negative, people are so desperate that they're really now willing to open up, listen to things they wouldn't have before. This show is exactly that. This is a one-stop shop for all the things that people would have needed that they didn't think they did until things got really serious.
I agree, Dr. Karen. I know so many people that had the COVID virus and survived. They got through it. And we want to focus on them too. Their families and their faith got stronger. But you know what? On the other hand, there are people during the lockdown in their houses with their spouse, their children, or parents, spending much more time in close proximity than ever before. There's been a record number increase of abuse, addictions, and depression. Relationships are being tested,
Yeah.
or they are growing stronger.
Yeah. Yeah. And when we think about, when I think about loss and grief, I think about how many people have lost their jobs, people who've lost their homes. I mean, it's not just a physical mind, body, spirit, but there's a lot of tangible loss. I mean, people have lost their entire nest eggs. Children have to move back home because they can't support themselves anymore. And so now you have generations living in the same house after they haven't been living in those houses, together before, and getting used to being around one another again. So there's so many amazing ways that people can use this time to reconnect and to get to know one another again, and to go back to the values that seem to be just lost.
And we're going to be able to
There's so
talk
many
about
things
we're going to be able
that
to talk
happen
about
as well.
topics that are taboo, because not only are people losing their jobs, their money, some people are losing their mind.
Oh,
Some
yeah.
people just
Oh,
don't
yeah.
know how
Oh, yeah.
to deal with losing their job. They don't know how
Yes.
to deal with losing
Right.
the familiarity of the routines of their lives.
Yes.
And so the fact that we're going to be so holistic in our approach, the mind, the body, the spirit,
Yes.
it's going to engage people, and they're going to hear things that they maybe never thought about before,
Right.
because
Yeah.
all of the answers are not just in one place, and we're going to blend it all together. You guys are
Yeah.
experts. I'm an expert. And look at how God has put us together
Yes.
to bring a
Yeah.
holistic approach to our blenders, so they can
Right.
feel like somebody sees us. Somebody, especially as Black women. Come on now, the stress we go
Okay,
through.
Joel, now, okay, you're getting me too excited now. The blenders, they want to hear what you have to say, and all of us, but we know we have to go to a break, right? So, blenders, when we come back, you heard Joel, you know who she is. She's going to have a guest. Her guest's name will be Bonita Hampton Smith. And together they're going to talk about the inner you, the part of you that you may have been neglected. So know this, you will need to take notes. Whatever you need to find to put notes on, between Joel and Bonita, you will need to hear what's coming up next. So don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
Welcome back, Blenders. This is our first guest today for our season 2 of the Blend Talk. This sister is definitely a gem, a jewel in God's kingdom, because she's so multifaceted. Minister Bonita Hampton Smith is based in Atlanta. She's a teacher, a speaker, an author, a wife, a mother, and a chaplain. And her education is in psychology and business administration. She's been a resource for women dealing with substance abuse and in the prison ministry. So please help me welcome today Minister Bonita Hampton Smith. Thank you so much, Minister Bonita, for joining us today. How are you, my sister?
I am doing well, and I was trying to keep up with that person you were talking talking about. Oh, thank you so much for having
I'd like
me.
to hear your spiritual perspective on keeping our sanity and faith strong in this pandemic. Give us some light in the darkness. Help us to figure out how we can get through the wilderness. What are some of your insights? Because we all know that the churches have been closed or limited, and people are experiencing faith fatigue, and people are feeling
Mm,
disconnected, and some are actually questioning God
yeah,
because they're losing loved ones, losing jobs and homes from this pandemic. And the news stream
yeah,
is certainly feeding in to the weariness, the fears, and the
mm,
hypervigilance that so many of us are experiencing.
yeah.
And it's so wonderful to have you to speak to our blenders today.
Thank you so much, and you're so right. And I want to first just acknowledge that all of that is true and it's real. COVID is real. People have been dealing with social distancing in isolation, and to your point, feeling disconnected from the church because churches have been closed down. And then on a national level, we've seen racism right in our face. We've seen inequity right in our face. We've been sitting still, and we saw a black man get killed with a knee to his neck. And then you're dealing with your own relatives that are possibly ill from COVID, and some have passed away. And these are very real issues, very real things that are happening, in our nation. What I would say, the most pivotal thing right now for all of us is to drown out some of the noise and watch our consumption, because too much consumption of all this happening, it throws you off balance, it gets you stressed out, and you have to find a way to just drown out the noise. And what works for me, just a personal application, is just meditation. And many people don't may not know how to meditate, but I would say get quiet right now and just learn to breathe. Learn to breathe and appreciate every breath, because these are real things. And if you don't get quiet and attend to your spirit, your heart, your mind, your soul, your body, this thing beyond COVID-19, everything that comes from it, the fear, the anxiety, the stress, it can take you out. And so you have to begin to cultivate and nurture your spirit. And we can talk more about some practical ways to just really get quiet and nurture our spirit, our inner being, and pay attention to it. Pay attention to, what's happening on the inside of us.
I really agree. As I reflect on the scripture that says, "Be still and know that
Mm,
I am God,"
yeah,
with this disruption and interruption of our comforts, our liberties for traveling, entertainment, gatherings, dining, our pace, our demands, and our schedules, it is difficult for many of us to be still. But
yeah,
it says, "Be still." And I'm wondering if we could see the perspective that maybe this was an invitation for us to be still and to reflect on how we're living
absolutely.
our lives. Oh, can we find the good? Can we find a silver lining? Do we believe that
Yeah.
maybe God is inviting us to another dimension of our faith and trust?
Absolutely, absolutely. And you mentioned that the in the Old Testament it does say, "Be still and know that I'm God." And then the New Testament, you realize that the kingdom, that God is within you. And so the key to you being still is tapping in, tuning in, and turning in to that which is within you, your God source. Yeah, you have to tap in, tune in, and turn into that which is in you. Your God identity, your God consciousness. When you tap into that, you begin to gain a different perspective. And when you tap into that, you begin to see things clear and differently. And so it's so important that you reconnect right now, that we refocus right now, and that we get tuned in, so synchronized with the heart and mind of God, that we understand how to navigate this climate, because you have the power, you have the resources. It's just being intentional about tapping in and tuning in into that which is within you. And that God consciousness is so needed right now. And you can't do it until you quieten yourself. Get somewhere and yeah,
And I think the key word is intentional.
intentional.
Not only do we need to be socially distanced from people, but we need to be socially distanced from the stressful
Yeah.
media and the television because it's feeding so much fear. And I think people feel like, if I'm not watching it, maybe I'm going to miss
Yeah.
something. But I think we could be missing having that experience of feeling one with our Creator, the Holy Spirit, missing out on creating a calming spirit that knows how to trust.
Yeah.
But this is not the first time that humanity has gone through a crisis. And when we're in a crisis, we need Christ. And in a crisis, we need to be able to trust God's
It
supernatural
is.
power that is within us. And I hear you saying that the challenge for all of us is to be still and to trust. I think that's a challenge for a lot of people because we are so cultured and we're so programmed to tune into the stress producing media 24 hours a day that we're going to have to learn how to socially distance from all the negativity.
Yeah, and you're right. Not just the media, but even social media. We're on Instagram. Yeah, we're on Instagram. We're on Facebook, and it's so important right now. The thing about COVID is it attack. We know, in general that it attacks the immune system. And so, just like our spiritual immune systems, we've got to build it up. We've got to build ourselves up on the inside, build ourselves up spiritually so that we can begin, to your point, deal with all the fear and all the television, that all the lies that's coming at us, all the misinformation that's coming at us, all the divisiveness that's in this nation and the fear of loved ones dying in hospitals alone. We've got to tune out the noise. We've got to turn it down, and we've got to turn up the volume in our spirit. Turn up the volume in your
Yes,
faith.
and that
Yeah.
is the intention and the branding of the Blend Talk is to become a resource in the media that we are injection
Yeah.
for the
Oh, I like
infection,
that.
we are a
An
guiding
injection for
and
the
healing alternative program away from that is filling us up with so much toxic energy, which can infect
Yeah.
our faith, our hope, and our joy. Minister Benita, we encourage our viewers to take notes. Your perspective on how to guard our spiritual health is affirming. Won't you please give us some action steps, maybe 3 tips to help us survive and thrive through this pandemic?
Awesome. Great. Yeah. The one thing I will say, uh, the first thing I want everybody to do is to watch your consumption. Just watch the consumption. We all want to be informed, but watch how much you take in and use a lot of different resources. Don't get stuck in one place, but make sure you read and gather the right information. The second thing I would say is get your consumption, just minimize it, but then get to a quiet space and just find you some quiet time to meditate and reflect on those things that are good. And the last thing I do for myself is practice gratitude daily. You'll be surprised that gratitude will shift your attitude, it'll shift your mind, it'll shift your atmosphere if you practice just daily gratitude. Find 10 things each day that you can be grateful for.
Yes, thank you, Minister Bonita. We are grateful and we trust that you, your family, and all of your endeavors will be blessed.
That was an absolutely fascinating segment, don't you think? It helped us understand the inner you, how the inner you is being affected by this COVID experience. But now we're getting ready to learn all about the middle you, the mind, the will, the emotions, and how COVID has affected people on all levels. So, Dr. Karen, you can call her Dr. K, is about to speak with Dr. Gloria Morrow, who's a psychologist. And they're going to help you figure out how to deal with this middle you. So, don't go away.
Welcome back blenders, and thank you so much for staying with us. Jewel, she just enlightened us on the spirit. That's the inner you. Now we're going to move to the middle you, the part of you that includes your mind, your will, and your emotions. Joining me is our special guest, Dr. Gloria Morrow. Dr. Morrow is a seasoned clinical psychologist who serves as the Director of Behavioral Health for Unicare Community Health Center, Inc. Her teaching, speaking, counseling, and books have helped thousands find true inner healing. Dr. Gloria has also shared her expertise on many topics, including depression, anxiety, marriage and relationship issues, women and men's issues, at conferences, workshops, and seminars. Please welcome Dr. Gloria. Dr. Gloria, so good to have you.
Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Karen.
Can I tell you how I am a little bit in awe of you, having read about you, thinking, oh my goodness, those are all the things I want to do before I die. So please, that's how I'm feeling. I hope it doesn't come across. I'm going to try to just keep calm while we talk. So,
oh no.
but we seem to have a lot of similar interests, and I'm just fascinated to have this talk. But today, we have to focus our attention on the COVID-19 lockdown because I believe you would agree with me that has contributed to quite a bit of depression, especially in persons I'm sure that you work with, many that I work with are struggling, and then grief has been something that is so huge. And I found a lot of my clients didn't even understand grief and that they were in grief. And so today, if you don't mind, I would love for you to tell us a little bit about grief, tell our viewers what grief is, the stages, and how can they recognize that grief is happening in their lives.
That is a great topic. As you do know, we are going through 4 major pandemics, I like to call it. We're having to deal with COVID-19, political chaos, economic distress, and racial tension. So people are really struggling, and they're going through a grieving process, and there's healthy grieving, and then there's unhealthy grieving. So we have to give ourselves permission to grieve. Kubler-Ross talked about 5 stages of grief, but I like to tell you about Deborah Bronstadt, who came up with 7 stages. The first is shock and denial. Second one is pain and guilt. The third is anger and bargaining. And then the fourth is depression, reflection, and loneliness. The 5th stage is going towards that upward turn. And then the 6th stage is deconstruction and working through, which I really like this one because we have to work through this process. And then the last stage is acceptance and hope. And I want to let people know that we don't all the time go sequentially through those stages. We may go to the middle, something may happen and swing us back up to the top. And I like to even think of these as statuses because we can move up and down. If something else happens in our lives, we have our own pandemics going on. So something else can happen in our lives. So yes, it is good to grieve. Give yourselves permission to participate in the grieving process.
Thank you so much for breaking that down for us, Dr. Morrow. You made it sound really clear, and I'm sure our viewers got a lot of information. I found, though, that persons don't like the idea of grieving. They feel like, oh, there's so much pain, and they don't want to go through it. And then when you try to help them process it, they would rather push it aside. What could you say to our viewers who feel like there's just so much pain in their lives already, and why are you telling me that it's healthy to grieve and that I should embrace this? What can you say that would make them want to do this rather than push it aside and put it off for some indefinite period?
Well, thank you for that because a lot of people are willing to suffer in silence. And not only do they hurt themselves, but they hurt other people because they're broken. So there should be a great reason for all of us to stop suffering in silence. And we have to definitely acknowledge our pain. We have to give ourselves permission to go through it. We have to definitely understand the benefits of becoming healthy by going through this healthy grieving process, and then also look at the consequences if we do not, and then seek the help of a trained mental health professional. I'd like to encourage everybody right now to take your cell phone out. There are some people in that cell phone you should not talk to when you're going through. So you want to find healthy people to surround yourselves with and seek the help of a trained mental health professional. There is no dishonor in seeking help.
I certainly agree with you. Have you found, Dr. Morrow, that in the Black community in particular, persons are more resistant to maybe seeking professional help, especially the mother figures, the ones who feel like they should be able to cope and help everyone else and they don't want to appear weak? Have you found that?
Oh my goodness, yes. We have to take that superwoman cape off. There are times when we need to get help ourselves. And in our community, we know there's a stigma associated with getting help for mental health challenges. But I will tell you, if you are suffering, you need to get help. We hate to hear the word crazy, and I think people think they're crazy if they get help, but no, I want to change that. You're crazy if you need help and don't get it. So it's important for us as a community to be healthy and whole. God wants us healthy and whole. And so it's important for us to use our resources to get the kind of help we need, irregardless to how we think about therapy.
Yes, I totally agree with you. I like to use, that little analogy of if you were in an airplane and the oxygen was running low, put on your mask first before you help your, dependent. And, people, especially the superhero woman you're talking about, find that so hard to accept. That's the right thing to do. But I'm sure you've seen, as I have seen, where people help each other and help everyone else until they fall apart and are in such crisis that you don't even know if they can come back from it.
Right. That's why we're sick.
Right.
That's why we're sick.
Yes. So I kind of want to make sure that our viewers, the blenders, feel like after watching us here talk about grief in this way, as if it is good and it's worthwhile and that they should be supported in it, I want them to feel like they can take something away with them. Would you have any tips, any easy to remember tips that they could take and write down and put in their note apps just to keep reminding themselves as this pandemic continues, the pandemics you spoke of, so that they will know what to do when they face grief?
Yes. So first of all, give yourself permission to grieve. We are going to face grief and loss. Loss is inevitable. So we have to embrace that and love ourselves enough to stop and allow ourselves to go through that process. Stay around positive people, supportive people. Cling to your spiritual source because this is the time that you need to have a sense of hope. Practice mindfulness, which means don't worry about the past because you're going to be more depressed. Don't focus on the future because you're going to be more anxious, but worry about the here and now. You're here now. You're still here, so please embrace that. And then lastly, find things to laugh about and find your center. Find yourself connected to whatever it is that makes you feel whole, because that's what you're going to need during this tough season.
Dr. Gloria, those were such great tips. I know that the blenders watching really want to contact you based on what I saw on the internet. I'm not sure how you would find the time to talk to them. But I do know that you use your social media so effectively to reach so many people. So how would you want people to contact you or to access the help that you're offering?
Well, please visit me on my Facebook page, A Brand New Me with Dr. Gloria. I invite you there because I provide education and tools and tips for you all throughout the year. So please visit me there and then visit my website, which is A Brand New Me with drg.com. A Brand New Me with drg.com.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gloria, for joining us and sharing those vital tips about how to deal with grief in this pandemic. But don't go anywhere, Blenders, because Dr. Lisa is going to introduce us to Dr. Josana Simmons, our special guest, who is going to help her talk through how your outer you has been affected by this pandemic. We already spoke about the middle and the inner you, so stay tuned for what's next.
Time for the Blim Talk.
Welcome back, Blenders. We've heard so much good information today. We've talked about the inner you. We've talked about the middle you, which is the mind. And now here we're going to talk about the outer you, the body, how COVID-related grief and loss is affecting our physical bodies. And I want you to take notes. I don't care what device you use, but take some notes because we're going to talk about so many amazing topics as it relates to the physical. And we have an amazing guest today, Dr. Josana Simmons, who's a naturopathic doctor. She has a specialization in women's health and midwifery. She graduated from the prestigious Bastyr University, and she is ready to tell you all you need to know about staying physically healthy during this pandemic. So welcome, Dr. Simmons. How you doing today?
Thank you so much. I'm doing great. It's really great to be here.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about what you've been experiencing with your patients and their physical challenges during this pandemic.
Well, at first, I didn't notice anything particular except for folks who are interested in protecting their immune systems. So I made a lot of recommendations around food and nutrition, meaning, encouraging folks to continue to eat well, to eat cleanly, meaning staying away from fried foods and sweets and highly inflammatory foods, and moving toward vegetables and clean meats and proteins and things like that, and keeping their diets really simple. It seemed like when folks got into the lockdowns, immediately folks went to comfort foods. And so there was a lot of like ice cream and mac and cheese being eaten. And then, by the time summer came around, we saw folks putting on what they call the COVID-19. That's the 19 extra pounds that folks got. Yeah, with
weight gain.
And so, that weight gain is not just cosmetically problematic, but it's also problematic health-wise. Dr. Lisa, that being overweight is a risk factor, A, for COVID, and B and C, it's a risk factor for things like diabetes, a risk factor for hypertension and other more chronic insidious inflammatory illnesses that we see, very prevalent in certain populations, particularly in Black and Brown people, and that's been exacerbated due to COVID as well. And then on top of that, folks not having the chance, not establishing good sleep habits. So some of it's behavioral. When we didn't have to get up and necessarily go to our offices or to our workplaces, at the same time for a while, people stayed up late, sleep rhythms were disrupted. And then now we're noticing with the increased anxiety that comes along with the world of COVID as well, that insomnia has become a big issue. And in
And
Yeah.
that's interesting because most people don't even think as of sleep challenges or insomnia as a disease or something they should treat.
Yes, but it's so important. You know, sleep is fundamental
Yeah.
for good health, in that when we don't
Yes.
sleep well, our bodies don't have a chance to rejuvenate and to restore itself. And poor sleep has been connected to weight issues and with hypertension
Yes.
and with blood sugar regulation, like again, like type 2 diabetes. Like these are
Yeah.
chronic, diseases and illnesses that folks have, and not having proper sleep interferes with that. In addition, it can also,
I know I've been seeing you've been seeing people. I've been seeing people with digestive issues and a lot of GI problems. Have you been seeing that
Yes,
lately?
for sure. And you know, when you don't eat well, when you're not exercising, GI issues can be a big problem. Yeah. And we both know that the gut is the center for the immune system.
That's
So
right.
it's so important to have our guts in good shape during COVID and always. But because of it, and because of the chronic stress and chronic grief that people have been having to deal with, the guts are also compromised.
Yeah.
So constipation is another
Yeah,
issue.
That gut brain
Yes,
connection, right? There's the
yes,
connection
indeedy.
between the gut is the second brain, right? Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah,
Yes,
so
indeed.
good. This is good information. And then in Chinese medicine, we always talk about lung and constipation, lung and large intestine. And so many people are dealing more with colds and flus and phlegms and respiratory challenges, as well as dealing with constipation, because those two organs in Chinese medicine are paired. So when one goes out of balance, the other can go out of balance. This is good stuff. I love it, love it, love it. So tell us a little bit about some of the ways that people can improve their physical symptoms. Like, give us some tips, some actionable items that people can take away from
Yeah,
today.
for sure. So I did mention diet and nutrition. You know, what you eat is fundamental to your health. I should say what we eat is fundamental to our health, because I include myself in that picture. Fresh fruits and vegetables, having, again, lots of water to stay hydrated. Even teas are good for hydration, and staying away from sugary things like, sodas and cakes and cookies and all those comfort things. In addition, getting on top of the sleep issue is really important. So if we are having issues with sleep, it's important to have that looked at, to seek help for it. And, some people take, mild melatonin over-the-counter supplements to help with sleep. And I found that those can be helpful as well. Exercise. So it's critical, and it's like, this is the no-brainer stuff,
100%.
but it's important to be reminded of it. And I want to add to exercise, getting outdoors and exercising in fresh air. There's a field of therapy they call forest ecotherapy, which is all around this idea. It's a Japanese principle of forest bathing, but what it does is it encourages folks to go out into the outdoors and go where their trees are. So if you don't live near a forest, you can certainly go to a park and to just be amongst the trees and to be in nature and to help to gain some of that alignment back from being indoors.
Yeah, that life force energy, right? That's the
Absolutely.
life force energy.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Yes. You're speaking my language, Dr. Lisa.
Yes, ma'am. This is good stuff. And when people are stressed, all of these things, and in grief, all of these things tend to fall by the wayside, right? Because we're so focused on surviving and that angst, as opposed to just being and taking time to just enjoy the time that we have, because this is an unprecedented time, but it's also time that we can do a lot of great work.
Absolutely.
So I thank you so much for sharing all of this. Listen, Blenders, were you taking notes? This is some good stuff. We got exercise. Remember, if you can go outside, that's perfect, right? Just a little bit. Even if you wear the mask, no worries, right? If you can drink water, especially alkaline water, oh my God, that would be amazing for you. And sleep is key. If you are staying up past a certain period of time and you're having a problem falling asleep, sleep is an issue. That's something that you really have to work on, because you can't lose weight, you can't get healthy, you can't heal without sleep. So Thank you, thank you, thank you so much, Dr. Simmons. I love all this information you've been sharing. How can people get in touch with you?
You can reach me directly at thedoc@docsimmons.com. That's just my email. So if anyone wants to reach out to me, come right ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Lisa. That was wonderful. Now, coming up later on in the show, it's our newest segment for this season 2, and we call it NEMA. The letters stand for nutrition, exercise, meditation, and attitude. Now, if you thought the spirit, the mind, and the body segments were great, you don't want to miss what's coming up next. Believe me, it is going to enrich your life.
Back, blenders. We're so glad you stayed with us. You're not going to regret it, I promise. You are about to be introduced to a very special guest of ours, Miss Carmen Bowen, who actually contracted the COVID-19 virus and lived to talk about it. And today we really want to find out a little more. What was that like for her? We need to look at the outer, the inner, and the middle parts of her and how this virus affected her life. So please welcome Carmen. Carmen, I'm so excited that you survived to tell this tale.
Amen, sister. I'm so glad I survived too.
I know, but a lot of people don't realize that apart from the physical symptoms, there are emotional ones, and I'm sure you had some that you can share with us. Would you mind telling us what it was like for you, or has been like for you emotionally because of contracting the virus?
Absolutely. Once I figured out that something wasn't wrong, I had gone to visit some relatives, and all of us contracted COVID. And so we were all sick, but I was hoping I just had the flu, but I didn't. And once they confirmed I had it, it was shocking to hear that diagnosis. You actually have COVID-19. And I have an 11-year-old daughter. And I thought, people are dying of this. What happens if I die? I take care of my mom and my daughter. And I thought, my emotions were everywhere. But the main thing was, I just don't want to die. First of all, I have so much I want to do, but she depends on me. So that was the main thing. And I also have a son as well, but he's an adult, but she's not. And I'm thinking, wow, I was frightened because if you watch the news, so many people have died. And I didn't know what to do. And I really thought, I'm not prepared to die. I don't know if I have even finished my will, anything. Everything went through my head. But when I couldn't breathe, that was really scary. That's when my mind started going in so many directions. My son told me he's a respiratory therapist. That was my other blessing, that he was able to help me get through it. And he told me what they were doing for their patients. And I did everything. And one of the things is you had to lay prone or on your stomach. And so I just laid on my stomach and I prayed and I tried to stay calm. No one could come in. So it was so lonely. And thank goodness I had a bathroom in here so that I didn't have to, intermingle with my family and possibly get them sick. And one thing I didn't mention is my mom was just diagnosed with cancer, and she was going to have cancer surgery. And I couldn't take care of myself, my daughter, let alone be there to support her. So luckily her best friend drove here from Houston to help care for them, which helped. But the main thing was every day, I just said, I just want to live. And I don't know if any of you have had any trouble breathing, but that's the one thing you have to do to live. And I have to tell you, if you can see my bed behind me, and my bathroom is right behind me here, I would walk from my bed to this bathroom and it felt like I was climbing a mountain.
Wow.
And then to just and then to to wash your hands and try to get back to the bed. And you're thinking, please just let me make it back and get back in the bed. And this was a daily fear. I was sick maybe 3 weeks feeling that way, just totally sick. And then toward the 3.5 week mark, I started feeling better. But, each day I wasn't quite sure. And I still, I spent my 55th birthday in quarantine and no one could come in, but I have a window here. And so everyone kind of knocked on my window and wished me happy birthday. So I wouldn't say it was my saddest birthday, but it was the most unusual, because the reason I wasn't sad is because I was still living, and people loved me, and they brought me gifts and they slid in the door. And so that was it was something you make the best, you make, lemons out of lemonade. But that's how I was feeling physically and then mentally, just frightened. And then I just kept worrying about what I hadn't done and the things I hadn't taken care of. And my daughter would sit outside the door and just, kind of ask me, are you okay, Mom? Are you going to be okay? And I would always say, yeah, but, I would always kind of later kind of cry, because I thought what if I did die? And I don't want to get all emotional, but what if I did? And, who's going to love her like I love her?
You got the victory.
Yes, but I got the victory. Yes, you see my eyes watering, but, and I guess what made me fear.
Carmen.
Yes.
During your isolation from your family, do you feel like your faith was tested, or was it stretched?
Both at first, because everybody goes through that. Well, why me? And I had a wise person tell me, well, why not you? And so then I thought, if you really are God-fearing person, and I'm talking to myself, I said, then you got to trust that God's going to get you out of this. Because I know he has more for me to do. My faith kept me going. And I kept thinking, as I got better, or I wasn't, dead or having to go in the ambulance to the hospital, but I still felt horrible. I kept thinking, he's going to let me get through this. So my faith was tested, but then it was stretched. And when I came out of it, I knew I had the glory and the victory. And I thought, I got to trust God all the time, because he did not leave me. He did not leave me, y'all.
Carmen, I wanted to ask you a quick question about how you're feeling now as far as the physical symptoms. Like, what are some of the after effects, some of the physical after effects you might feel?
Right. That's something that, now a lot of people know, but afterwards, it doesn't just go away. You don't feel as horrible. But I had what's called the long haul syndrome. And how I even knew, because the doctor never did call or say, hey, did you live or die? How you feeling? And this is how you handle it. You're not going to get that. So you just have to keep honest and work with your friends and things that have it and see what they did. And that's what I ended up doing. But I still suffer from chronic fatigue. And because that was my biggest symptom when I was sick, is that chronic fatigue. It's like you run a marathon all day long. And so every now and then I'll get that, I'll wake up in the morning and I feel bad and I feel tired for no reason, but I just pray about it, shake it off and say, come on, shake it off. Let's go. But the long haul syndrome is real. And I think Chris Cuomo on CNN said he was the one that made me really realize, because he was very honest about how he was feeling. I said, that's the way I feel. And then when I started talking to others, they too felt that way. But it just doesn't go away in the 3 weeks or so. It just, and the long haul comes back when you least expect it. But it's still a journey. And I haven't had as much recently, but every now and then it'll come back and say, hello, remember me? And I'm thinking, yeah, I remember you. So, but I did get my shot. I got vaccinated. Both of them are complete, because I don't ever want to feel that way again, nor do I want to inflict that kind of, mental and physical trauma on anyone, and certainly would not want to be the cause. Yes. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate that.
Carmen shared her testimony and the journey of her walk of faith and the long haul syndrome, and she's still healing. and she made time for us, sharing her story of courage, faith, reflection, and the love from family and friends. The struggle is real, but there's also victory. And I hope this gives you some hope, lenders, to know that there are people surviving and there are people trusting God for their healing. So be sure to stay with us. You're watching The Blend Talk.
It's time for the Blend Talk. It's time for the Blend Talk.
Hello, everybody. I'm Deborah Piguet. I'm so delighted to be here with the ladies on the blend, where positivity is their mode of day. But we've been through a lot in the last year that really threatened our peace of mind. And for many of us, it challenged us to maintain a really positive attitude. I know for me, I didn't want to make that pivot when all of my speaking engagements were canceled. And all of a sudden, now I got to talk to a little red light. I didn't like that. I was used to a live audience, but I realized that I was going to have to learn that change is inevitable. And so I checked my attitude. And that's what I want to talk to you today about, an attitude. What is an attitude? An attitude is a mindset. It's what you've determined, that the way you're going to think. And it's developed by what we were told when we were young, don't trust those strangers, or things we saw other people experience, and by our own experiences. I know that when I was single, I had a really bad attitude. I had a financial chip on my shoulder because when I was growing up, I saw women who were uneducated and unempowered, and I thought that they set themselves up for abuse because that's what I saw. I saw my mom with 7 children who didn't have any options. And I determined from that day that I wasn't going to be that way. So when I met my husband, I said, I'm going to spend whatever I want to, and I don't expect anybody to say anything. I tell you, through some spiritual mentoring and understanding, man, to this day, 42 years later, we're walking in harmony financially. But what about your attitude? What about your attitude? Because let me tell you something. One of the things we're going to have to do during this extreme season of just various unprecedented adversities, we're going to have to learn how to have the right attitude towards trouble. And I have a trilogy of beliefs that I have adopted regarding trouble. You see, I call it the IRS of trouble. The I is for inescapable. Listen, we're going to have troubles. We're not going to escape this world without having some troubles. In fact, I think there's a passage that says that man that is born of a woman is full of days and is full of trouble in a few days. All right, so we're going to have some trouble. So just settle that. Stop wishing it would go away. Stop wishing it wouldn't come. Just know that you're never going to be alone. You have God and you have a support system. So the I then is trouble is inescapable. But the R is trouble is required. We wouldn't develop very much if we didn't have troubles. You see, trouble does for your spirit what weightlifting does for your muscles. The more you resist the pressure, the stronger you get. And then let's look at the S. S is for seasonal. I'm so glad to know that troubles don't last always. We like to say that weeping may endure for a night, but joy is coming in the morning. And so I look forward to that. The IRS. Inevitable, required, seasonal, people, seasonal. It's going to pass. And that's what the mindset we're going to have about trouble. And we got to watch those things that we believe, because you see, these attitudes come out of a belief system. You see, there are really only 2 types of beliefs. There are the beliefs that are limiting and the beliefs that are empowering. Think about this. Now, if you think that you are inadequate and you can't do things, you're going to limit what you pursue. You're going to limit those people that you interact with. So you got to ask yourself, what am I believing? When I find myself rushing down a path that's of negativity, I will stop and say, what am I believing? Is this belief in alignment with the word of God? And I just have to check myself, and I'll go back and I reject it if it's a belief that is not empowering. We have to understand that. We can be a model of this. This is what I like about the blend. All of those ladies are models of positivity. And I want to tell you something. During this season of contagion, a really good attitude is contagious. Yes, a positive attitude is contagious. But I want to say to you today, don't wait to catch it. Be a carrier. You can do this. You have a God in you that is all powerful, always present, and he knows everything. Imagine when you embrace that as a truth, you show up differently. So go out there, be a spreader of positivity.
I'm so glad my sister friend Deborah Begay was with us today. She always brings it. We've shared the speaking platform in the past, and she knows how to inspire and teach us about attitude. Attitude is everything, and as she discussed the various attitudes in her book, it seems like she was talking about the fruits of the Spirit. When our attitude is grown from the spiritual true vine of our Lord, we can have the right attitude to endure things like this pandemic and produce fruit.
And what I loved about what she said was embracing change. Like the whole concept of her work is changing. And when you change, you can heal. And change was what everyone had to do during this pandemic, right? During this time, we're still changing and adjusting and shifting. To me, changing is growing. So I love that. I love that.
And that attitude change, the word perspective was a big word for me this year. That's really what it meant to me. It's like, okay, I had one perspective before, but if I could just change my attitude, my perspective may change for the better, and I might feel like I can cope better. And I really love how she broke down all the ways that our attitudes can change, because some of those I might not have thought of on my own.
I mean, I really enjoyed that because part of her platform is teaching us how to let go and surrender. Surrender about the things that we can't control, which is difficult for many of us in this pandemic, which is full of uncertainty and change. Now, everyone stay with us as we move into our next section about inhaling and exhaling. I'll be showing you the importance of decluttering your mind, your lungs. Yes, stay with us, blenders. This has been an amazing show, kicking off season 2 of the Blend Talk. Now let's stop for a moment and notice your breathing. This has been a very emotional time, and the heaviness sits on our chest. It affects our lungs and our breathing. And I find it really ironic that the COVID-19 virus seriously affects the breathing in our lungs and in our throat. So let's just take our time right now and be still, because maybe you heard something throughout the show today that triggered you and made you think about a loved one who's passed on, or maybe you're thinking about the loss of your job, your home, your routine, your lifestyle. Maybe you realize you need to change your attitude or change your diet or your walk of faith. And you know, studies show how the brain resists change. It's difficult and it's easier said than done, but you can do it. So let's just breathe out all the stress, the anxiety, the grief, and the worry. I want to ask you to loosen up your neck and your jawbone, your throat, because when we're stressed, that's where a lot of tightness is. I want you to loosen that area so that you can own your voice. I want you to sit up straight. And I want you to realize that you're sitting on the throne of grace and that there is no separation in the mind, the body, and the spirit. There is no separation from your Creator, the Holy Spirit. You are one, but you want to line up your spine and your mind so that you can have a spiritual download of energy, power, and ease. Deeper breathing, not shallow breathing, is the goal. And I want to encourage you to put your hands gently on your stomach so that when I ask you to inhale, you're going to breathe all the way down to your stomach area. Because so often when we're stressed, we just breathe very shallow. But we want to go all the way down to where we were once connected to our mother's womb. We are womb men. So let's breathe together. And if you feel comfortable, close your eyes and just listen to my voice as I ask you to take a deep breath in. I want your shoulders to rise. And then when I tell you to exhale, I want your shoulders to drop down. And I'm even going to ask you to let some noise out because there are some silent tears and silent screams that need to come out. So let's inhale, exhale. When I do this exercise at my retreats, I hear the groaning coming out. It's a sign of releasing, of letting go of the stress and moving through the grief and lifting off the heaviness. And you're not going to hold back. You're not going to pretend, come on now, everything is okay. We're going to do it. Because there were times when you felt overwhelmed or you felt underwhelmed. So let's breathe. That's the first thing we did when we came out of our mother's womb. We inhaled our first breath of life. I'm going to ask you to hold on to your stomach area and gently straighten up your back and loosen up that area in the jawbone and inhale and take a deep breath. Rise your shoulders. Exhale, letting the stress out. Do this even after you leave the show. I want you to do it several times until you're used to hearing a sigh come out. Make this a regular practice. It is very liberating to realize that so much has been pushed down in the body. The body keeps track of everything, and you forgot some stuff. You think you forgot it. You think you pushed it down. You think you're ignoring it. You think you're denying it. But it's down there. And so we're going to inhale and exhale. We're going to release, and we're going to invite in new breath, new spirit, new joy, new insight, new peace, new energy, new revelation, new victory. Hallelujah. So let's put our hands on our stomach one more time. And remember to let those shoulders come up because I want you to experience real deep breathing and exhale almost like a rag doll. Wow. I promise you, if you really commit to this exercise, you'll find it very healing, very relaxing. The great release is about the breathing. In fact, the word spirit means breath. And when we lose the breath, it's called expire. That means the breath, the spirit has left the body. It comes from the Latin word. It means breath, spirit. Exhale the stress and the worry and the grief and the anger and the unhealthy attitude that is toxic. We're learning to let it out. We're going to keep it doing it, okay? So promise me that you'll do this as a spiritual practice to unify and align your mind, body, and spirit. Remember, we see you. We are you. And together, we're going to win. Together, we're going to have victory through this COVID-19 virus. We're going to get off this corona coaster. We're going to drop our anchors of faith. We're going to heal our bodies and our minds, and we're going to be winners. So please make sure, my wonderful blenders, that you share all of our episodes. That's right, show and tell somebody about the Blend Talk.
Mind, body, and spirit. Spirit.